can really pick up the relief there, you see, Giles? And from that basis, you can draw the actual stratigraphy.
How could one of the world's most beautiful temples be hiding something so dark under it? Angkor Wat has been a sign of peace and perfection for hundreds of years, but new scans have just shown a secret vault that has been locked for 900 years. It wasn't gold or wealth inside, and it was something much scarier. Why should you stay here? What's below Angkor Wat will make you question everything you thought you knew about history. The birth of a cosmic temple. A king in the middle of the Cambodian bush had the idea to build heaven 900 years ago. His name was Suryavarman II, and he was king of the Khmer Empire. It was so big that his people couldn't even see it. He wanted a memorial that would not only stand out from his enemies, but also last forever. It wasn't just a temple that came out of the bush. It was a stone map of the whole world. It was known as Angkor Wat. Its towers looked like lotus buds reaching for the sky from far away. From close up, every block, carving and curve follows a pattern that is so exact that engineers still can't believe it. It's one of the most complicated buildings in the world, and the people who built it didn't have steel, cranes, or computers. Angkor Wat wasn't built to be a place of regular prayer. It was meant to look like Mount Meru, the mythical hill in the middle of the universe that is home to the gods. Its 5 towers looked like the peaks of a mountain, and its gardens were like the layers of the sky, the world of people, the world of spirits, and the realm of the divine. People were getting closer to paradise with each step up. There was an ocean around this world made of stones. It wasn't water from the sky, but water that people had dug. The temple was surrounded by 4 large moats, whose sides reflected light like mirrors. They weren't just for looks. They stood for the cosmic sea that separated people from gods. But there was hard science behind that poetry. Those moats kept the temple cool, soaked up floods, and kept the building standing through hundreds of years of storms. The Khmer engineers hid technology in things that looked nice. The walls inside the building turned into stories, goddesses fighting, dancers frozen in time, and the king surrounded by gods were all shown on sandstone walls that were hundreds of feet long. It was both a prayer and a piece of marketing to show that the king was one with the gods, and not just blessed by them. The king was the link between heaven and earth for his people. It was like questioning the order of the universe to question his power. The way that Angkor was built is even crazier. The sandstone came from mines that were over 50 kilometers away. The joints between the blocks were so tight that you couldn't even fit a piece of paper between them. Both blocks were as heavy as cars. Not cement, there are no glues. It's just perfect math that was balanced by hand and is still strong after 900 years of time, heat, and rain. Each stone, wall, and step was a lasting prayer. Together, they told a story. People could reach the gods if they built tall enough, believed deeply enough, and followed the rules to the letter. Angkor Wat was a temple of love and genius that stood for hundreds of years. It was so perfect that even nature seemed to bow down to it. But flaws in perfection tend to stay hidden. Along with the bright decorations and calm water, little details started to show that the design had something else hidden that wasn't meant to be seen. People who lived there said there were spots where the ground sounded empty, lamps dulled when there was no wind, and no one dared to dig. They said that the building that looked like heaven also watched over something from hell. Soon, people would follow those whispers because they were set on finding what the gods had tried to hide. The jungles whisper. Folks who lived near Angkor Wat didn't see it as a tourist spot or a source of pleasure for hundreds of years. They thought it was living. It seemed to breathe when the wind blew across its moats. When thunder hit its towers, it seemed like the gods were getting up. When the ground under the rice fields made a hollow sound, they didn't try it. They just turned away. People in the village talked about restless areas of land where even birds wouldn't stay. Monks told people not to go near certain walls at night because the air felt heavy, like something was waiting below. It wasn't just ghost stories. It was advice that had been passed down from generation to generation. Don't wake up what sleeps under the stones. Then one day, a stranger broke the silence. Henri Mouhot, a French naturalist, went into the Cambodian bush in 1860. He wasn't looking for wealth. He came to get plants, bugs, and artifacts for museums in Europe. The bush, on the other hand, had other ideas. The trip was terrible. He could feel the air sticking to him like steam. He had leeches crawl up his legs, and the ground was so wet that it ate his boots. The plants got thicker as he went deeper, until the green felt like it would never end. Then he saw things that didn't belong in the forest. Straight lines, sharp edges, and spires rising where trees shouldn't be. It was like a screen fell away when he cut through the vines. A city made of stone stood in front of him. The cracked faces of gods looked out from the walls. Along the stairs that went into the shadows, snakes were curled up. He stood still when he saw it. Afterward, he wrote that what he saw that day was better than any church in Europe. Mouhot was amazed at first, but soon he felt uneasy. He looked around and saw something strange. Some tunnels came to a sudden end at smooth walls that didn't fit with the original plan. Some were filled with solid mortar, making it look like someone tried to lock the hallways from the inside. Rooms that seemed to end in silence were what he wrote about. In his drawings, you can almost feel how confused he was. How could someone build something so big that it hides itself? It was a big deal when Mouhot's drawings and diaries got to Paris. Explorers and scholars couldn't believe that Asia had a lost civilization of this size. It was known as the Lost Cathedral of the East in the news. Later, expeditions went there. Plans were made, and Angkor became the center of attention in Europe. Still, not all of Mouhot's notes were published. Early drawings of the colony didn't show some strange depressions near the Western Gate. Some sketches have been lost forever from the files. Officials said it was because of misplacement, but some people thought it was because of quiet control. The missing bits might not have been mistakes, but rather warnings that were ignored. People in Cambodia stayed away from each other. They said that workers who touched the wrong walls got sick for no clear reason. Lanterns went out because there was no wind. One worker said that the chisels resisted the stone, which sounds like the temple wouldn't open. Snake guards called Naga carvings were made around these sealed areas. Their eyes were fixed on the ground. It was clear what the message was. These weren't doors to go through. They were walls that were meant to keep something inside. Foreigners kept digging, making maps, and fixing things up, but they had no idea they were standing on a secret that had been kept secret for thousands of years by kings and nations. The world was amazed by the beauty above ground, but the real story was still buried below, locked in rooms that no one dared to open. People have been warned for generations that the ground below Angkor was hollow. The air below it was heavy, and the gods below it were restless. But when science took the place of superstition and lasers cut through the jungle, those rumors turned into facts. What they found below the ground would change everything we thought we knew about Angkor. The city beneath the jungle. Angkor Wat's true shape was hidden for years by how well it did. The temple was well known, shot, fixed up, and visited by millions of people, but no one could see how huge it really was. It was surrounded by too much jungle and too much dirt. The shapes of everything that used to be there had been buried by storms for hundreds of years. With the naked eye, Angkor Wat looked like it was the only beautiful building in a sea of green. But that was just a trick. Everything changed when scientists switched from tools to lasers. In the early 2010, researchers sent LiDAR, a technology that sends millions of laser pulses per second towards the ground, into the sky on planes. Each pulse hit leaves, branches, and dirt, and then went back to the sensors. This lets computers remove layers of jungle and rebuild what was underneath. It was like making the trees see-through. The screen lit up when the first file pictures came back. Where trees used to be, roads now stand. There were grids where there should have been chaos. The floor of the jungle wasn't random, it was planned. That's right, And they found a city instead of a temple. A digital map showed a web of roads, canals, and neighborhoods that covered hundreds of square kilometers, something an explorer on foot would never be able to see. Angkor was more than just the biggest religious building in the world. It was also the center of a long-lost megacity that was as big as the old world's capital cities. Every laser line of data changed the past. A world of water was built by the Khmer builders. Canals brought water to rice fields. Reservoirs stored monsoon rains like batteries, and canals kept the city cool when it got too hot. This was controlling the weather hundreds of years before power. That's why people in the past started calling it the hydraulic city. No one saw what was hidden in the data, though. Deep inside the temple, under the holiest part, the center sanctuary, the lasers found shapes that didn't fit. Straight squares, clear lines. The foundations of Angkor Wat were perfectly lined up with the empty spots. They weren't just empty spaces, they were planned. Researchers were shocked by the find. Some people said these forms were foundation deposits, which are small holes that ancient builders sometimes used for ceremonies to bless a new building. But those deposits were usually only a few feet deep. They weren't huge geometric holes that went right through the most holy room. Some people thought they might be natural forms, but the symmetry was too perfect for that to be a mistake. There was a split in the scientific world. Some people told others to wait because the data wasn't proof. Others said it was wrong to ignore such clear trends. The pictures looked fake, like they were made on purpose, and old. If they are true, they could prove the oldest rumors that there are hidden rooms under Angkor Wat. What the results showed made me wonder if the Khmer builders had built the temple both up and down, towards the sky and into the ground. The difference was very clear. From above, the towers reached for Vishnu's heaven. Below, something else was locked away and left alone. The breath of the mountain. By the year 2020, being interested had turned into being obsessed. The stories, the LiDAR data, and the missing plans all led to the same conclusion. There was something hidden under Angkor Wat. They chose to look straight through the stone, which was something that no traveler or monk had ever done before. With ground-penetrating radar and micro-seismic sensors, a group of archaeologists, engineers, and digital imaging experts from around the world came to the spot. What they were most interested in were the Western Causeway, which every pilgrim used to enter, and the center sanctuary, which was built for the gods. It was like a heartbeat was being read from the sounds of the instrument's pulsed waves that went into the ground. Each scan sent back layers of color and sound, turning hundreds of years of quiet into information. At first glance, it seemed normal. The foundations were thick, and the sand was packed down, which are common signs of old workmanship. Things changed after that. Instead of solid rock, the sensors picked up nothingness in the form of long horizontal gaps under the sanctuaries. Even stranger, these holes were lined with stone that was thicker than anything above it. It looked like the best engineering skills hadn't been put into the building that everyone could see, but into the one that was hidden below it. It didn't make sense to find that. Why support what can't be seen? Why put in so much work to keep people out of something that wasn't meant to be there? Others thought they saw secret tombs or rooms used for rituals. But the data kept making the mystery deeper. Corridors that split off like veins, and all came together under the main tower. Then things went wrong. A small part of the western bridge suddenly fell apart in the middle of the scans. The event shook the team, but no one was hurt. Some sensors had problems, connections got short, and some devices just stopped working, as if the ground didn't want them there. As soon as the power came back on to one of the scanners, a picture flickered on the screen, a faint carving pattern that looked eerily familiar. It looked like Naga snakes wrapping around people. Local workers took a step back. Some people refused to go on. The people who saw the markings said they were warnings. The same symbols could be found on the temple's locked doors. They said that waking them up would awaken whatever slept below, and punish you. All eyes were on them, though. Journalists hung out around the edges, and backers wanted results. As the scientists felt more and more pressure, they kept going. They turned the machines back on, made the scan grid bigger, and sent pulses deeper into the ground. The radar lines got clearer, and then they saw it for sure. From the center platform, there was a single corridor that went down. Its outline was clear against the rock, not a natural flaw or crack, but a way through. The digging began in the morning. Roots and rubble blocked every move, making the entry look like a knot of veins. After hours, the last layer of soil finally gave way, showing a small stone cutout that led into the darkness. Thick, cold air came out. It got quiet in the jungle. The mountain of the gods finally let out a breath after 900 years of silence. What lay beyond that breath would change everything. Discovery of the chamber. It was just barely big enough for one person to fit through the door. Taking out one stone at a time from the blocked tunnel felt like pulling teeth out of the mountain. Sensors showed that the air inside was old and had less oxygen than the air outside. It had been shut off since the 11th century and hadn't been opened since then. When the last slab moved, a slow, heavy hiss came out, as if the mountain was giving one last warning. The smell, which was wet, metallic, and bad, was the first thing that hit the team. Lights flashed through dust that was so thick it looked like it was alive. There was soot on the walls, and the surfaces were darkened and blistered. Every breath could have been mine. Later, notes said that the heat was unbearable, the quiet was strange, and the weight of history was pressing down on every heartbeat. Shapes started to show up as the beams moved across the walls. Naga, which are carvings of snakes, wrapped around people and sank their teeth deep into their arms and throats. They used to protect holy water, but now they were killing people. It was clear what the message was. This wasn't a safe place to stay. It was a warning. A huge stone door stood at the far end. Instead of hinges or a handle, it has hardened mortar around the sides and faint sigils etched into the surface. After hours of chiseling and drilling, the slab finally gave way with a deep crack. Years of darkness were broken by the light that came in, which stopped the team in its tracks. Bones, a huge number of them. Around a single altar, the floor was set up in rings of skulls and ribs. Copper wire was used to bind the wrists. Heads broke off. Spines are split open. These weren't funerals. These were killings. It was like a history of blood, with sacrifice after sacrifice. Small metal pots covered in dark residue sat on the altar. Later, tests in the lab found that dried blood had proteins from both animals and people mixed in with it. Nearby, faded Sanskrit and Khmer writing says, "The blood below feeds the gods. Break this chamber, and their hunger returns." After the shock, there was quiet. Some of the researchers cried. Some people refused to stay. When they saw the truth, it hurt so much. Angkor Wat, which was once called Heaven in Stone, was built on graves. And that's where history bleeds into mystery. If this story gripped you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And don't go anywhere. Click the next video popping up on your screen now.